Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy Mother's Day. We're going to start with our gathering song, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Sing along. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Stengel. I am co-chair of our Sunday Services Ministry and been a member of this congregation since 2015. Welcome to the online service of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. We're so glad that each of you are able to join us this morning, and together in community, we can ensure that social distancing does not mean social disengagement. Our weekly services are more than just a gathering of our physical bodies. It is the forming of a sacred time that we make together. Whether you're well-versed in the technology of teleconferencing or this is your first venture, we welcome you. For those of you new among us or reconnecting with fonder hearts, we invite you to introduce yourselves and where you're connecting from in the chat box as you're comfortable. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, whatever your theological stance, whatever your heritage, whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. You can learn more about us on our website and Facebook page. We encourage you to share our Facebook page and reach out to others who may be isolated this time and might benefit from the spiritual connection with our loving community. Announcements can be found in this week's order of service. A link to the order of service can be found in the Zoom invitation email you received this morning. I'll highlight a few of them. You can see on your screen. Monday, we will have UUCD men conversing over coffee. Joe Gelati is the contact for that. On Tuesday, also via Zoom, Women on Our Own. Jane Left is the contact for that. June 6th, immediately following the service, we will have the annual meeting of the UUCD, and we encourage everyone that can make it to that meeting. After our service, we invite you to stay and participate in a breakout group for individual connections and deeper check-ins. Again, welcome to the UU Congregation of Danbury, where we welcome all in a spirit of compassion, inquiry, and service. Today, we welcome Lee Kinvey as our service presenter. Lee is a UU ministerial candidate, currently interning with the First Parish Church of Groton, Massachusetts. Lee has two complicated children, 17 and 22, and works as a hospice music therapist and mental health counselor. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you for the invitation to come here and talk with you this morning. My opening words here are adapted from Linda Hart. From where have we come? This breath, these fingers, a heart that opens and closes. What is it that has made this body? We come in the middle of the story, and here we are, living these days, for better or worse. Whatever acts of chance occurred to bring us to birth, to bring us to church this fine May morning. Whatever happenstance laid this particular path for our lives, let our hearts open now in gratitude for the gifts that can be found along the way. For the love given, sweet and free, for the peace of the morning, for the grace of companions, and for those who have offered us the gift of mothering through our years, no matter their age or gender. Those who have tended and cared, supported and comforted us by their presence in our lives. In these first moments of our time together, I invite you to speak, even as you stay muted, the names of those who have companioned you, who have mothered you, and are held now in your heart on this day. Kathleen, Judy, Polly, Carol Beth. It is good to be together. Come, let us worship together this morning.
Please bring a candle or chalice close by if you have one, and join me in lighting your chalice, and then in our chalice lighting words. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life.
Good morning. It is good to be together. If there are children and youth who are in the room but not near the screen, this would be a good time to come over. Lee, who is our guest today, would like to introduce their son. He couldn't be with us in the service this morning, so Lee brought a video introduction. While you're on your way over, let me remind your families that there is a family walk in the woods happening this afternoon at 3 p.m. in Reading. Also, please note the change of meetup location that got emailed out this morning around 9:43. If any families didn't RSVP but would like to come, you are most welcome. Just send me an email anytime this morning. Let's share in our children's affirmation, the words for which are printed in your order of service. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other.
So good morning. I am so happy to be able to introduce you all to my son, Lars. This is a picture of Lars from very recently. He is 17 years old right now. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him and about his beginnings and how he is in the world, who he is in the world. If I were able to bring Lars to meet you in person, one of the first things you would probably notice about him is that he uses a wheelchair. He is not a guy who can stand on his legs, and he's definitely not a guy who can walk. And that's because he has something called cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy affects a person's body movement and muscles. People who have cerebral palsy are generally born with it. You can do different things to treat it, but you can't cure it.
Not everybody who has cerebral palsy uses a wheelchair, but some people do. He loves to go for walks outside, and there are even playgrounds that we have found that have swings that we can put his wheelchair on. And there are wonderful merry-go-rounds, like you can see here, where you can put the wheelchair right on and go round and round and round. Going round and round is never a good idea for me, but do some of you like to do it? Do you like to go round and round? Lars also loves to play baseball. He plays with the Miracle League of Massachusetts. The Miracle League is for people with disabilities to be able to play baseball together. Lots of different folks play. Some have wheelchairs that they use, and others can walk. Lars even sometimes in the winter gets to go skiing. So he does adaptive skiing where he's sitting down the whole time, and he has people who are taking him up the mountain with them and back down. Check it out. But you know, those things I've been telling you about are for special days, and they don't happen that often. Especially during COVID, they don't really happen at all. Most of Lars's days are kind of regular, and his regular days are actually pretty different from your regular days. The thing is, I got very sick when I was pregnant with him, and we both almost died. But we lived, and his brain got very damaged. Actually, mine got somewhat damaged too, but not like his did, especially because he was still in the womb and still developing. Our brains actually send out electric signals that travel along the nerves to the rest of our body, and those signals are what tell our muscles to move so that we can do the stuff that we want to do. Lars has epilepsy, and so sometimes he has what we call seizures. For people who have epilepsy, seizures usually come on all of a sudden, and they're kind of like a big lightning storm in the brain. While they last, people can't really control their muscles and stuff at all. Lars takes lots of different medications to try to prevent the seizures, and while they do slow them down, none of the medicines work to actually stop the seizures from happening. So Lars has some other things going on with his brain that also contribute to his disability. One is that he has what's called microcephaly, which means he has an abnormally small brain size and a very small head. And he has some other kinds of brain damage too. Because of the damage to his brain, Lars is not able to see, so he is blind. He has really good hearing, though, and music is one of his favorite things in the whole world. In fact, from the time he was a baby on, there was one particular song that he loved more than all the other songs, and all he would have to hear is the very beginning of it, and it would calm him down. If you got fussy in the car, my daughter, who was 5.5 years older than Lars, used to say, "Mama, Mama, put on the magic song." And even just a few seconds of Eva Cassidy singing this song, Fields of Gold, would totally calm him down.
You remember me.
It's still one of his favorite songs.
Among the fields of barley.
Lars loves lots of different kinds of music as well. He loves Michael Jackson, And here's a short video clip of the first time he heard the band Boys to Men. Oh my goodness.
Really like this, huh?
So I wonder if you have started to notice something else about Lars, which is that he does not talk. He's what they call non-verbal. There are lots of different reasons people might be non-verbal. Sometimes it has to do with control of the muscles that are needed to make words. Sometimes people use other ways of communicating ideas, like sign language. In Lars's case, his intellectual disability is considered severe or profound. In terms of thinking, he's about the same level as a baby who is 4 or 5 months old. What that means is that Lars does not think in words at all. He doesn't understand or work with ideas. So he doesn't follow along with stories. He doesn't worry about the future. He experiences the world right now through his senses, through his body. The 5 main senses we talk about are, can you name them? Seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting. So since Lars does not see, he has hearing and touching as his main 2, and then smelling and tasting. And by touching, we definitely also mean the way, for example, wind touches our skin and rain touches our skin. It's all the things that we feel through our skin.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of rain, it's one of Lars's favorite things. Oh my gosh, he loves rain, he loves wind, he actually loves cold weather and windy cold weather.
Yeah. Wind is always
Another
my
thing that
favorite.
Lars loves is his voice. Now, he doesn't use his voice to make words, as I mentioned, but he does vocalize. So there's a difference between verbalize. Verbalize means words, and vocalize. That just means sound with your voice. He loves to vocalize. Here's a little video of him after he ate his absolute favorite food in the world, which is grilled salmon. And he told us all about how he loved the grilled salmon, using no words.
Marcy, did you like the salmon? Did you like the salmon?
Yeah.
That was perfect. That was perfect.
Here's another little example of vocalizing. Lars loves to explore his whole voice, and now that he's 17, he has this beautiful deep guy voice as well, which seems to delight him.
Yeah. Hey.
So we have lots of conversations. They just don't happen to involve words.
Yeah. Hi, buddy. No.
If you have some disabilities like Lars does, maybe you can relate to how he is. And if you don't, then maybe learning a little bit about Lars invites you to imagine what it would be like to be him. And maybe that helps you understand all the parts of your life that you take for granted, that you don't really think about. Getting up in the morning and walking down the hall to use the bathroom, which Lars can't do. Moving into a room and understanding what's there because you see it. Feeding yourself breakfast and getting dressed and telling somebody what you're thinking. Watching a TV program and making a friend. So if you're somewhere out in the world and you see someone kind of like Lars, maybe you'll be able to go up and say hi and introduce yourself and just be a little curious about who the person is. Just ask. Because that's one of the hard things about being Lars. He loves other kids, but they don't come say hi to him. But I can tell you, if you do reach out sometime, you're going to make somebody's day. Guaranteed. So listen, if you have any questions about Lars or about anything from this morning, I would really, really love to be able to answer them. And I will be here for coffee hour afterward, but I'll also make sure Sierra Marie has my email and phone number and Marco Polo name. So be sure to reach out if you have any questions that I can answer. I would love to do that. Thanks for listening.
I'm going to invite you to join me in singing if you want to. This song was quite popular a few years ago. You might know it. Crowded Table, or the words are going to be in the lyrics, I believe. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be a mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be a street light showing you the way home. If you can hold my hand when you need to let go. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds, plant a little happiness, let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, then it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. The door is always open, your picture's on my wall. Everyone's a little broken, and everyone belongs. Yeah, everyone belongs. I want a house with a crowded and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done.
Let's now move into a time of sharing our own stories of giving and receiving love. Please write in the chat those personal milestones that are lifting up your heart or weighing it down today. And please do reach out and offer your support or affirmation to one another, whether by chatting with everyone or privately. In these so much online times, it takes a little more effort to connect beyond the screen. So please do let one another know how you are on this day.
We come to the time for our congregational offering. If you're with us for the first time, please feel free to pass the virtual plate. Your presence here in the Zoom room is your gift to us. Members, please click the link on your screen to make a donation or pledge. For even though we are not in our beloved fellowship hall, our operating expenses are still the same. You may also mail a check to UUCD at 24 Clappard Ridge Road in Danbury. Thank you for doing your part to support and sustain this community we love. Now please join me in our congregational response. In the spirit of compassion and service, we dedicate these, our offerings.
Thank you for watching over me all of the sleepless nights you lay awake. Thank you for knowing when to hold me close and when to let me go. Thank you for every stepping stone and for the path that always leads me home. I thank you for the time you took to see the heart inside of me. You gave me the roots to start this life, and then you gave me wings to fly. And I learned to dream because you believed in me. There's no power like it on earth, no treasure equal to its worth, the gift of a mother's love. Thank you for every sunlit day that filled the corners of my memory. Thank you for every selfless, unsung deed I know you did for me. Thank you for giving me the choice to search my soul till I could find my voice. And I thank you for teaching me to be strong enough to bend. You gave me the roots to start this life, and then you gave me wings to fly. And I learned to dream because you believed in me. There's no power like it on this earth, no treasure equal to its worth, the gift of a mother's love.
Thank you so much, Jerry. That was beautiful. So 5 years before my guy Lars was conceived, I was working as a music therapist at a place called Crystal Springs, which is in southern Massachusetts near Fall River. Crystal Springs is a residential facility for folks who test under 12 months developmentally. So it's a place where Lars would belong. I absolutely loved working with those clients. It's really kind of my home base in music therapy along with hospice. I love being with them. And that particular year, I was training my very first music therapy intern. So I'm going to call her Gail. Gail was not an easy or stellar intern by any stretch of the imagination, but with a ton of work, she got through it, got a passing grade, and we were sitting down together for the very last time, trying to put closure on what had been for both of us kind of a very long, hard year together. And Gail gave me a homemade thank you card. And on the front was her hand-drawn image of the individual client she had worked with all year who had died shortly before her internship ended. And the image that Gail drew on the card depicted her client in Gail's version of heaven as being without any disabilities at all. And the picture of him had like hundreds of bright, colorful lines emanating off of him, right? And she had written, "Finally fully whole," on the card. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't even put words to it at first. I just found it so disturbing. And my sort of intuitive sense was, okay, I have failed. Like, I have failed in my mission to educate this intern, because there's something that she's not seeing about these folks who we've spent all year in intimate contact and music with. She's not seeing them as fully whole and human and worthy, as worthy of love and belonging as she is, just as they are right now. Since then, I've had, 22 years to consider this drawing and so forth. And maybe now I can step back, I don't know, an inch or so from my zealous insistence that my worldview is the right and appropriate one. And it's still true for me that Gail did not receive sort of the central teaching of what I had to offer in that internship. And it's okay. I mean, she left without it. She's been doing her thing out in the world for 22 years. This all came up for me because 3 or 4 years ago, one of the first classes I took in my Unitarian Universalist seminary, so I go to Starr King School for the Ministry. In one of those first classes, we read a book on how to write eulogies, right? And the book had a section on sort of difficult and out of the ordinary eulogies. As part of that section of sort of the harder eulogies, the author had given an example of a person who died who had severe, profound intellectual disabilities. And by that time, I had my son Lars very much in the very middle of my life. And the book of eulogies portrayed in words the exact same imagery that my intern Gail had on her homemade thank you card. It was the person imagined as finally free, finally whole and healthy and without disabilities in heaven. And I found it just as disturbing. And part of what I've unpacked is that for me, what is so deeply true about Lars, and actually about everyone for that matter, all y'all and everybody else, is that we are fully human and whole and a little bit broken, exactly as we are. But for the thought that saying, when Lars is without disabilities, then he'll be whole, then he'll be free, is for me it's like saying, oh, this extended member of my family who's Black will finally be free when they're white in heaven. Like, what? No. Like, that's just not, it just doesn't work with my mind. And I started thinking about how, for who knows how long, at least 2,500 years, we've had, 2,500 years ago, Socrates gave us this idea that if you're not capable of self-reflection, of asking yourself deep questions about the meaning of your life, then you actually shouldn't be living. And Socrates' sort of pithy little statement about that was, the unexamined life is not worth living. And boy, do variations of that find their way into so many corners of life, so many statements, so many corners of theology and hymns and Unitarian Universalism all over the place. And it gives me great pause. I stop every time. I find it so startling because it's not where I live. The unexamined life is not worth living. Really? Really? Is that what you mean? Is that really what you mean? Is Lars's life really not worth living? I mean, I just showed you a whole bunch of video and sort of intimate moments of Lars because I want to show you a tiny little sliver of how I experience him in the world, and I think how his sort of experience in the world, and it takes some translation, right? The unexamined life is not worth living is one of the things, in fact, that led to those who believed in eugenics, right? Eugenics was a pseudoscience. In the United States, it was focused on the efforts to stop the transmission of negative or undesirable traits from generation to generation. And without going very far into it, without getting into any gruesome history, which there is unfortunately a lot of, eugenics actually made its first official appearance in American history through marriage laws right here 125 years ago when Connecticut made it illegal for people with epilepsy, so people with seizures, or people with intellectual disabilities to get married. That's how it started legally in the United States. And then the Nazis actually studied America's eugenics movement. For me, this is similar to how other white people and I have been learning now for a long time, and we will always continue to need to learn, to consider, I need to learn always and over again to consider my ideas and language through the lens of white supremacy culture thinking, to try and examine and re-examine and just keep checking myself, right? So I want to invite us to consider the idea of looking at our ideas and language, thinking about them, considering them through the lens of intellectual supremacy thinking. Is what we're asserting, what we're saying, still true if we think about it applying to Lars's life? Is it still true when we think about it in terms of the life of someone with advanced dementia? The other day, the president of the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, sent out a guideline thing about getting ready for COVID. And it said in big, bold letters that everyone who comes back to church must be able to give consent to do that. And I thought, do you really mean that? Does that mean that Lars can't come back to church? Because I don't think anybody would say he could give meaningful consent, that he could have considered the risks of COVID to his health and made the choice to come back. That is giving consent, right? So it's like, it's the invitation to start hearing those things, to start hearing the lens. There is another way to say it, much more, so that those who are able can give consent, and likewise guardians. For example, 2-year-olds can't meaningfully give consent either, right? So it's an invitation to all of us to consider another lens for who we're including and who we're excluding with how we're talking. A lot of people don't have the opportunity to grow to love somebody like Lars because there aren't that many of them actually out there. And I could say he's 1 in a million, which is what my doctors always said. But that's why I wanted to bring him here virtually, not because he's mine and I think he's super cute. Although I have to admit, I think he's super cute, but that's because he's mine. Not because I think he's more special than other people's kids, but actually because he can't hang out here and tell you about himself. And he's also kind of not a cheap date because since he's blind and he has no access to words or ideas, people can't simply flirt with him from across the room. So if you want to be in a relationship with Lars, people have to invest in him. So I watch people do this. They have to leave all the titles and the identities and the roles behind, and just bring themselves, just bring presence. Come in close to him and let him feel who you are physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But the thing is, to the people who invest in him, he changes their lives. And if they build a relationship over time, he will open-heartedly give them everything he has to give. Everything. He gives it all. Lars is raw. He is not trying to impress or achieve or accomplish anything. He's just being in like a totally unconscious way. He is what human is. Human being, right? My definition of a human superpower is a thing that we can just do without trying. So it's a real gift. It's a grace. It's something that you just come with. So Lars has two main superpowers that I know of. I'll tell you about one of them today, and that is getting people who come to know him to fall in love with him, right? To feel so much affection and care for him. I have watched this for 17 years. He matters to people. And I always tell him, buddy, if you're going to have one superpower, you got the best one you could hope for. Because the thing is, if you're Lars, you're going to need 24-hour care on every single one of your days on this earth. And the more caregivers who love you, the better. So that's the right superpower, buddy. You know, so much of nurturing and supporting most kids, whether they're ours or just kids who are in our lives, is about sort of our quest to help them grow, right? Our quest to help them mature and learn and achieve and become. And I talk to so many parents, and the stories are always about what their kids are doing and how their kids are doing, and they hope their kids are doing, and all of this. And loving Lars actually got me a free ticket out of that. Because Lars isn't going to become anything else. In fact, due to his neurological condition, he's been developmentally slowly declining since he was 3. So loving Lars requires full and complete acceptance of him exactly as he is. And if you're willing to learn from him, he can show you. Watch, you don't have to be smart. You don't have to be simple. You don't have to own anything. You don't have to study anything or read anything or say anything at all to be loved. You just are. You are so loved. You in particular are so loved just for being, just for the essence of your being. I'm going to lead you now into a time of guided meditation. I use the term guided loosely. Lars is actually going to guide us. I'm going to invite you to attend as much as possible to your sensory experience, your physical experience, your emotional experience, your spiritual experience, but not so much your thinking. Just leave your thinking brain behind for 5 minutes. I promise it'll be there when you get back to it, okay? I'm going to invite you to open to as much spaciousness as you can find, internal spaciousness, vast, curious, delight. I'm going to invite you to suspend disbelief and just be willing to travel with Lars and his music therapist, Jill Buchanan, into this improvisation. Lars and Jill co-created this. They just made it up on the spot. It happened to be a few minutes out of their music therapy session that I recorded and I unearthed for you all to hear today. This was, I believe, 14 years ago.
La la
Yeah. As we enter back into shared space, I'm going to invite you into Spirit of Life by Carolyn McDade. Sing along from home. Give yourself that internal massage.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We will now extinguish our chalices as we say together our words of affirmation. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. Our closing hymn this morning is Blue Boat Home.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in one and the earth is my blue boat home.
Thank you so much, Jerry. So tell him Lars taught you. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be simple. You don't have to own anything or study anything or read anything or say anything at all to be loved. You just are. You, in particular, are so loved just for being, just for the essence of your being. Blessed be. Amen.